Hello there, everyone. Welcome to this live edition of Locked On Cavs. We're recording this on Wednesday, December 29th. Perhaps you're listening to this on December 30th. If you're joining us, we want to thank you for tuning in on YouTube as we continue our push to 1,000 subscribers. Look, today's show is going to take on a focus on Ricky Rubio. We're going to spend the first half of this hour. We're going to be here live talking, I think, a lot about the Ricky Rubio torn ACL. First reported by Eastern Age Warnarski, since announced by the team. Rubio's season is done to the torn ACL that he suffered last night on December 28th in New Orleans. So we're going to talk about that, take your questions, talk about how the Cavs move on from here, take some more questions. We'll do a whole bunch of that for the next hour or so. Thanks again for tuning in. And we want to thank you, by the way, for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we're free and available on all platforms.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everyone, as we said at the top, if you're just joining us, we had some people come in through the break there. Ricky Rubio's season is done due to a torn ACL. He suffered that injury, obviously, on December 28th in New Orleans, late in that game. One of those images where you just kind of know something bad has happened. The MRI perhaps took a little bit longer than I think fans' anxieties were hoping, but his season is done. The Cavs bench MVP, one of the leaders of this team this year, his season's over. The Cavs will have to figure out life without him right now. Obviously, also don't have Darius Garland right now due to COVID health and safety protocols. So the Cavs kind of don't have like a obvious point guard solution right now. And I mean, it's very possible that we could see like Kevin Pangos start one of these next two games, unless the Cavs can get someone in. But Evan, how are you? And what's your kind of initial take to what's going on with Rubio here? What is your, as this comes through, how do you feel? Let's just start with the short term. How do you feel like this affects the Cavs as we understand them right now? We'll kind of build out here, but I want to start with the actual impact on what's going on right in front of us.
It's tough for sure. It's definitely tough. I think it's a gut punch for the Cavs in general because Ricky really was vital to the overall successes of this team. And especially because he's formed such a formidable and important relationship with Darius as well, just in mentoring him and forming just one of the more fun backcourt tandems in the league this year. I think it sucks for him because he is in his 30s and he's entering free agency this offseason, and this could have been the last opportunity for him to really maximize his returns and financially as well, whether that's with Cleveland or with another team, because let's not forget he was expecting to be traded to a playoff contender, not the Cavs, and kind of turned them into a playoff contender. And in the immediate, I think the Cavs aren't it's going to be a bit of a bumpy road until Darius Garland exits league and health and safety protocols. Kind of overshadowed by the Rubio news is the fact that Jared Allen, Lamar Stevens, and Dylan Windler have all exited league protocols, and they are in the conditioning status of things, which is a nice turnaround for things, I guess. But the Cavs are going to get healthier. They are not a team that tends to overreact when it comes to injuries. Let's look at the Colin Sexton injury as an example. They could have overreacted and made a huge move to try and replicate and fill the void left that Colin kind of just provided. And I'm interested to see how they respond. You and I both are, if you listened to today's episode earlier today, we were big advocates of Jeff Teague being like a 10-day option for the Cavs, or just finding some type of veteran point guard to plug behind Darius Garland long-term, and also for this season at least, and also act as more or less a band-aid to kind of slap on this dam that's about to burst. So yeah, man, it's tough. I empathize with Ricky as a human. I know this is hard for him. This isn't obviously the situation he wanted to end up in to begin with, but he was a pro's pro about it, and he handled it very well. And I think now this changes the trajectory for him personally and financially going forward. I am curious to see what happens there. And I don't think this is a death blow to the Cavs season necessarily, but it's going to be tough because Ricky Rubio was a big piece of what the Cavs were trying to build.
Yeah, I think looking at Rubio as one of the more integral pieces to this Cavs season, I think would be a factual to look at this. Like, I think if we're saying like there are a couple players that deserve the most acclaim, the most sort of positive kind of rub here, so to speak. It's like I think Garland, Allen, and Mobley are the clear three. And Rubio is fourth. Perhaps you could even make an argument he's kind of up there with kind of the non. I think it's for me the non-Garland, like it's him and Allen is sort of like these quote unquote veteran kind of upspeaks. The Cavs are this for the year plus 7.9 points per 100 possessions with him on the floor, 110.8 offensive rating, a defensive rating of 102.9. I think the floor general stuff with him is obviously going to be the big thing that they missed with him, right? Because he's been an organizer. He has been someone that has studied the ship. He is someone that you could see last night when Darius Garland missed his first game after entering the league's protocols. Like JB Bickerstaff just handed him the keys and was like, organize us, Ricky, please carry us there. And they've needed that. I think this was like, it was a clear need that Kobe Allman went out and traded Taurean Prince and some cash and a second round pick to go get, because he felt this guy would fill some needs and help the team improve. And I think that bet ended up being right. I think the trade turned out better than I would have guessed at the time. I think he's also defensively like a guy that has helped because he's not like a smaller guard, right? Like I think if we could talk about Jeff Teague, we could talk like, Brad Wanamaker was had been flooded there. He just signed with the Wizards on a 10-day. Like Isaiah Thomas is going to Dallas. Like none of these guards that are out there are going to also provide, I think, the defensive size that Rubio did, because Rubio is like a bigger dude. He plays bigger. Some of the guards you're going to bring in, I don't think are going to work quite the same way with Darius Garland, and they're not nearly good of creators. And there's just a lot that is going to be lost here. And I am fascinated to see how the Cavs try to scheme around this, because I think there are some ways they could go. I think there are some ways they could go, but I think you're right to hit on the human part of this, Ricky, because he hasn't had, and he's had some injuries in his career, but nothing that is quite like this at this stage. As you mentioned, heading into free agency, there's a lot of different ways the Cavs to look at this as well. It's just a absolute bummer. He's playing, great. He's almost on the verge of a triple-double before this injury happens in New Orleans. And he's just, I think, been a real positive impact on this Cavs team. I think, I think there have been times, this is perhaps a little sacrilege to say, where like people have gone a little too overboard with how positive he's been in terms of like, but I think there's been a very clear positive impact. And like some of the lineups he's been a part of, I think Garland, Rubio, Market, and Mobley Allen is the one that pops, because it's been outscoring teams by like 50 points per 100 possessions. There's only 79 possessions. He's been like a real stabilizer in a year where like things are weird. So they're gonna miss this guy. Evan, let's talk about that more after the break. And we're prepping this live so people can we'll apologize for that. But I think you want to tell everyone about our friends at TrueBill real quick.
Yeah, I do. Could you stall for me for 30 seconds?
Yeah, here's the other thing that I will just say about Rubio that I think they will miss in the short term. You can respond to this after the break. I think this probably has to change how JB Bickerstaff does his rotations. And the guy that I'm watching as like a cipher for this is Cedi Osman, because Osman has been tied to Rubio's hip for this entire season. And he has, like, I think really helped calm Cedi down. And now that guy is gone. And I wonder what that looks like. I don't want to say those things are like exactly linked up, the Osman resurgence with the Rubio benefit, but there's something to that. And I am very curious to see how Cedi Osman kind of looks as we go on here, because he's been useful for the Cavs. And like, if he suddenly falls off a cliff, the Cavs not only will probably like that 2 rotation guys down, and like this isn't a deep team. So there we are.
No, it absolutely is. And you know what else makes me curious? This is a really bad segue, but
look, we're live. We're winging it.
Free trials that renew without my consent. It's a business game out to get you. Do not let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill, today's sponsor today, to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 per year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill has saved over 2 million users and helped them save over $100 million combined. Do not fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA.
Okay, we're back. Evan, what do you think about what I said about the Jetty Rubio part of this, and in terms of where this leaves the
No,
Cavs
I think you're
rotation?
spot on, man. Like JB really did deploy.
I'm gonna pull up these splits while you're talking because I want to see if they're still as absurd as they were, because they were absurd for quite a while.
JB deployed Ricky in tandem with Jetty a lot. He also deployed Ricky in tandem with Kevin a lot too. And I think just having capable bodies coming off the bench that can provide you, like, in a vacuum, in like a very narrow lens, they provide you a specific skill set. Jetty, it's 3-point shooting, which is what you want, and Kevin, you want rebounding and 3-point shooting, and sometimes maybe some tertiary playmaking from Jetty as well. But Rubio maximizes that and pushes that to the limit at times. And really, like, I was always curious to see how far the Cavs could play out this bench unit of theirs, because it's a fun mob they have, and it's disappointing that they're no longer there. So I'm curious how Jetty's numbers look without Ricky on the floor long term. I'm curious how Kevin's numbers look on the floor without Rubio on the
Oh
floor
yeah,
long term.
Kevin's another one. This. Yeah, I spent so much time thinking about Jetty Osman. Like the Kevin part of this is
Well, even Mobley,
their
Allen,
chemistry's
like
so good.
Rubio's
Yeah,
been responsible for a ton of like key assists that have been like big buckets for this team, or has made a concerted effort to get a lot of these mouths fed on Cleveland's roster. Like, a lot of the pressure is going to go on Darius Garland's shoulders. I'm curious how he responds to it. I'm also curious how the Cavs respond to it too, because I think you're going to be asking way too much of Garland just to say, okay, kid, we want you to take the entire offensive load for the remainder of the season in terms of playmaking and creation.
Mm-hmm. It's too much to probably ask Darius to do.
Yeah, no, it is. I think that's the luxury of having a
yeah.
Ricky Rubio behind him.
And it would be too much to ask like basically any basketball player to like just take on the full creation load of any team. There is a limit on it, and like there are guys that can do that to a degree that is helpful. Like LeBron, obviously, I think did a lot of that 2018, where like everything was engineered through him and stuff. But like, you know, they don't work. Okay, so here, Evan, here's the numbers just as illustrative, I think, of Rubio's impact on certain guys. I just here's 858 possessions with him and Jetty Osman on the floor together. Those lineups are scoring 114.3 points per 100 possessions. They are plus 10.3 per 100 possessions, giving up 104 points per 100 possessions. IMO, that's pretty good. On the downside of it, that's Rubio and Osman on the floor together. Osman on the floor without Ricky Rubio, negative 14.2 per 100 possessions, scoring 108.9 points per 100 possessions, giving up, and this is the one that stands out, giving up 123.1 points per 100 possessions. That is in the bottom 1% of Cavs lineups on the season, according to Cleaning the Glass. That's really bad. And like, I don't want to say that like some of these lineups that will now have Osman in them, and he may be in line for a minutes bump now based on the Cavs roster in some of this. But like Garland, like, so the most common non-Rubio Osman lineup is Garland, Okoro, Markin, and Allen. That has played a whopping 30 possessions this year. You know, that is like over the course of the season, that is like very little. That is not a lot. And that tells you comparatively, I think, that like 858 with Rubio and like 327 without is like very telling of how JB has decided it is best to deploy Jetty Osman. And it is, I'm attaching Ricky Rubio to your hip and I am going to link you guys. And like, I think that's telling. Evan, what do you I think we should go into some of the tweaks the Cavs could make now. I think like getting another point guard in the building, I think is going to be something they can and should look to do. The market's a little thin right now, but we'll see who they get. But are there like schematic or structural changes in the rotation that you would just want to see perhaps JB try, or things you'd like to maybe see just to kind of grease the wheels here a little bit? Because Rubio, as we have alluded to, and I think have said, and the numbers show it, the people watch you, if you watch games, you can see it. Rubio has really helped this team. They have to now make adjustments to cope. They're not going to get him back, right? It's not like this is 4 weeks. He's going to be back. He's done for the year. Could be out into the beginning of next season, wherever, if he's playing in Cleveland or elsewhere. What would you say are some things you would like to kind of see experimented with or tried as the Cavs kind of adapt to life without Ricky?
Are we saying just this, like, are we saying like right now, or are we saying I have the luxury of Darius Garland being on this roster as well.
I think Darius has to be included in these solutions because I think right now, as we talked about on today's show, this COVID ball with like a lot of guys out, it just feels very fake,
Yep.
right? And like
See, I just wanted to make sure.
yeah.
But
Darius Garland is back, let's say, in 4 games. He misses the next 4 games with COVID stuff. He's back. They're full health from there. What are some tweaks you could make?
see, this is tough. Maybe in this little short window, Jetty's out due to COVID protocols as well, but maybe you see what you have from Denzel Valentine as a playmaker.
That's not a reassuring sentence in the year 2021, you know? It's like I guess Denzel's like gonna play point guard in crunch time because that happened, you know?
In point of Coro because they floated that in the summer league. Lamar Stevens is listed as questionable for tomorrow's game against Washington. They try to have him bring the ball up and initiate the offense at times during summer league. Maybe they try that out a little bit. I think it's going to be a lot of playmaking by committee. I think
to interrupt. Shout out John Coleman, Alabama State head coach Mo Williams. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I probably could make more money off an NBA contract for the remainder of the year, but who knows? But
salary might be
it could be comparable at the same time.
Well, I wonder if is that a public university? If so, that is public information. We could figure that out. Anyway, continue. That doesn't matter.
So, I think right now you're likely going to see Kevin Pangos start tomorrow against Washington. I could be wrong, but I feel like you want to try and set him up for success and instill confidence in him and say, okay. Because like you said, it's telling that he did not play hardly at all down the stretch after Rubio went out against the Pelicans last night.
Two second half minutes, and when Rubio went out, the sub was to put Denzel back in the game?
Yeah.
I think was the sub, and not Pangos.
See, that's the thing. So maybe JV doesn't it's tough. So in like the short term, you see what you have with Pangos. Maybe you really do think he is the third option behind Rubio and like the safety blanket and break glass in case of emergency behind Rubio that he was kind of touted as when they first introduced him. But he hasn't looked the part so far. I mean, he carved up in the G League with Taco Fall when I went to that Charge game, but so did Dylan Windler. Dylan Windler can't crack the rotation even when he isn't in COVID protocols either. So it's tough, but in the long term, I think the immediate answer is you have to use one of your 10-day exceptions. I think the Cavs getting bodies back kind of narrows their window. I think they're going to have to probably cut a lot of these players that they signed, and maybe they cut all 3 of them, and they bring in like a veteran point guard or somebody who can just play serviceable NBA minutes at the point, and then wait for Darius to come back. And then if the experiment with your 10-day veteran point works, you sign them for the remainder of the season, because I believe the Cavs still have a roster spot if I last checked, or they can wait.
They were at 15 if I remember correctly. I believe they were at 15 because they'd have one of the
Ed
solutions.
Davis is the one who I always forget.
Ed Davis becomes a 15. I mean, you could like theoretically eat one of these smaller contracts like Valentine or Pangos, like could be cuttable, and like you just don't worry about it. You could I think what likely could happen is because you have no Sexton for the year and no Rubio, I think you probably applied for a hardship exception that doesn't count against the cap, and then you can sign one of these guys for the rest of the year and not have it create luxury tax. So that to me is likely the process.
That's a viable path. We had a guy, Right Quick 24 in the chat, just say Malik Newman will get minutes. He at least knows the Cavs system. I spoke to Brendan Yu about this, and the Charge utilized Malik Newman. Newman is more of a Jordan Clarkson type role where he is just a souped up 6-man where they want him just to score. So they could necessarily maybe do that. I don't know. It's just really tough. Like we talked about this on earlier today on Tuesday's episode, or Wednesday's episode, I guess.
Right.
But the point guard market dried up really fast. And then Rubio went down. Like, this is suboptimal timing for a very suboptimal injury for the Cavs.
Yeah, and like in between when we recorded and when we went live here, Brett Wanamaker signed with the Wizards, so it's like there's another option.
No, he signed with the Wizards while we were recording.
Okay, while we were recording, yeah. I go on Twitter and I don't. It's just like a mess of.
Well, no, I posted the poll to ask our faithful listeners. Thank you all for making Locked On Cavs your first listen / first watch of the day. Love you all. Happy holidays, but. Somebody's like, Brad Wanamaker just signed at the Wizards. I'm like, did he? And I Googled it. I'm like, okay, yeah, he did. So I had to remove him from the poll and just say, do you want Jeff Teague or do you want Frank Mason? So,
not super fun options. All right, after the break, I'm gonna pitch Evan on embracing the Evan Mobley potential offensive upside, which I think kind of what kind of understandably became overshadowed from Tuesday because of the Rubio injury. So we'll talk about that after the break, and we'll start looking into Look, we haven't even like scratched the surface on like the big picture stuff with this. So we'll talk about some trades and stuff later, but we'll talk about Mobley next. But first, got to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with all of the best props, odds, and lines. And there's more than ever before as football continues its march through the College Bowl season and the Pro Football Playoffs. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the sports action this season. All you have to do is head to their website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive that bonus. From basketball to football to NHL to boxing to and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season and into next year. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available. That's BetOnline. That is where the game starts. And going to tell you about our friends at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. It's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, maybe include some Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolutions because it tastes so good, you're going to want to eat it, unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. And remember, Built Bars are covered in 100% chocolate. So there's tons of great flavors, cookies and cream. I know it's an Evan favorite, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, salted caramel, and more. Go to Built.com and check them out. And there's always new limited time flavors you can check out as well. Go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 for 50% off your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Okay, Evan Mobley. I think Evan Mobley at the 5 and really embracing the offensive potential right now of Evan Mobley, I think is a way for the Caps to navigate some of this. Now, there will be growing pains. There will certainly be some times where it doesn't work. And again, in certain matchups, like it may not always go exactly Mobley's way. Like I think about like in practice of like attacking like John Collins, who's been awesome this year for Atlanta in this way, like maybe isn't the most like straightforward, especially if you're going to just like post up Mobley. But I think some of what we saw from him at the 5, where we're Wade and Markkanen, and like our spacing, Kevin Love comes in, it's like 5 out in a way we don't really see the Cavs play very often. I think like just getting Mobley in those spots, allowing him to kind of be efficient, giving him more space to drive into, letting him operate as a trailer, as a 3-point shooter, giving him even some post-up opportunities, letting him, I think, run a spread pick and roll. And I think getting him some as a screener, I should say. And I think getting him some opportunities to create with the ball in his hands. I think like that was always going to be, I think, a long-term thing for the Cavs to do with Mobley and allow him to really grow, right? To allow him to really hit whatever that next level for him is going to be and kind of chase his potential. I kind of wonder if you just have to do some of that now, even as Allen comes back, even as Garland will come back. Like this team is clearly just going to need another offensive engine and someone to make this work and allow them to tread water enough on offense to allow the defense, which is clearly this team's identity, to kind of carry them wherever they're going to go. I kind of think I just want to see what would happen if you just give Mobley a little bit more of the ball and allow him to get some of these reps right now and just see where that gets you.
Yeah, I think you have like a 4-game window to really try this out too. Like, I guess I didn't think of that as a possibility because I was listing Valentine and Stephens and Okoro as like options tomorrow against Washington as a possibility. And then maybe Osman as well when he comes back from health and safety protocols as well. But I think it's fun. Like I said, this is the one thing that's always surprised me about Evan Mobley in his rookie season is the fact that he really does have a keen sense for playmaking and keen sense for moving the basketball and facilitating the offense. Like a lot of...
Sorry, Dad, I'm doing live podcasting.
Your dad called you?
My dad always calls. My dad. Shouts to Ivor Manning, a king.
The king himself. I loved his analysis of some players, but
we ever do a Patreon, that'll be the first one. Is Ivor Manning's unfiltered thoughts of just shit talking a certain Cavs player that he didn't like watching.
That'd be great, but I think it's something the Cavs definitely should explore and can explore. I think, like I said again, it's surprising that Mobley is such a competent tertiary playmaker. Maybe COD works as a primary facilitator, because I do forget this a lot, but he was the primary offensive hub at Southern Cal more often than not because they didn't have a true point guard on the roster. So they asked Mobley to initiate the offense for not just his brother, but for everybody on the team. And they were pretty damn good while doing it. And maybe in a more healthy NBA ecosystem where you have some players who can provide a little bit more gumption and playmaking as well, you really test out the limits of this as well and just kind of see what does and doesn't work. But also, throw my hands up, it could get really weird too. We could see
It's gonna
like
get
a
weird.
Valentine Okoro, Wade, Markkanen, Mobley lineup tomorrow.
The fact that they have like this going on and there's like a back-to-back to end the year is just like brutal NBA schedule shenanigans, like couldn't have predicted, this, perhaps you could have like looked at and said, there's going to be like a COVID issue, but like the Rubio tearing his ACL at this time is just like, you could not have picked like a worse time for this to like structurally happen to the team. Is there any like non-guy that I guess like Jetty's the one where I wonder if he gets the ball a little bit more, or at least like he gives himself the ball more.
Yeah,
Because
I mean, they could give Malik Newman a shot in theory too.
But it's like that's like a 10-day hardship like exception thing. It's like I think of like the guys we'd expect to be in the rotation going forward. It would seem like Okoro getting a chance to play with the ball in his hands and see where that gets him, and Jetty would be the two guys here that like are younger and could get it. And Jetty's not exactly like he's not like just starting out anymore. He's kind of a more of a young vet at this point, but like that's I think what we're looking at here. Until if and when they sign another point guard to kind of come in and scratch the minutes, I think that's kind of the reality of this. And I'm sure there's honestly, if I'm betting, like aside from Ricky and his family, I'm sure the most bummed person right now is probably JB Bickerstaff, knowing how much I think he appreciates
him and Kevin Love, and apparently Jose Calderon was less than thrilled too because he tweeted a very angry emoji. So
shout out to Jose. Honestly, Jose, maybe not in game shape or whatever, maybe living in Spain, but
bro, he's 40 years old. Let's not do this.
Hey, look, the Cavs, gave Andy like a chance to like hang out and play basketball last year, so the Cavs are just ahead of the curve in signing franchise legends to come back and hang out.
A nice dinner I was having when I'm just like, somebody said the Cavs signed Varejao. I'm like, no, they didn't. Shut up. And then I got the actual text, and I was like, oh my god, they did sign Varejao. What a weird. That feels so long ago. That was
I was debating with a friend of the show who I'm not going to name, but who likes the show and listens to the show, and we were having I wouldn't say debate, but he was like basically asking why like the Haslam thing is not the same as the Verja thing, and I think they're just different for reasons that I don't really want to talk about because I expressed in the text message, but I don't really want to talk about publicly.
Yet here you are talking about it publicly.
Well, I didn't say my full thoughts, so I don't want to talk about it anymore. Evan, before we head into like a little 5-minute, 2-minute, just kind of chance for us to drink some water and take a breather, any final thoughts on this part of the Rubio conversation? I think when we go into our second part of the show, if you're listening on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, the second part of this, we'll talk about like the future of Ricky Rubio and what this kind of means for the team building part of the Cavs, because I think that's a whole other weird thing we can get into and we'll take some questions. But any kind of final thoughts on this injury news and kind of what it means in the short term here?
It's gonna get real ugly real fast, and I think some of the people who were beating their chest saying this Cavs team is a finals team or a serious playoff threat, this is gonna be like a real big gut check for this team too. I don't know, man. I just hope the good vibes don't die with Ricky Rubio going down for the season, because he really kind of was the glue that held a lot of these pieces together at times.
Yeah, he's been really, really, I think, important to this team. We'll see kind of how this goes. But all right, we're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna take a sip of water. We're gonna come back. We're gonna take your questions, and we're gonna talk about kind of the big picture roster building implications of this injury. Because lest we forget, Ricky Rubio is on the last year of his contract, and there's a lot that we can dive into there, but we'll talk about that right after a quick little pause so I can hydrate. Hey, what's up? Long time. Just kidding. We've been here live for the last half an hour. We're going to continue to go live for another half an hour or so. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. If you're just joining us, we're going to continue to talk about the Ricky Rubio ACL injury. We're going to talk about now some of the roster implications, some of the team building bits of this. If you have any questions, now's a good time to put them in our YouTube chat and let us know what you'd like us to answer some questions about. Points for creativity, negative points if you are rude in any way. No bad vibes here on this Locked On Cavs live stream. I want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need, and they can even help you negotiate better deals on those that you want to keep. We also want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available on all platforms. All right, Evan. Ricky Rubio, last year was contract.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was some chatter, let's say, that the team might be interested in an extension with him. Had the season continued to go a certain way, had he been interested in coming back. I think, if we're predicting if he's on the Cavs roster next year, if he's in the team's future plans for the next 2-3 years, whatever, I think that becomes like a trickier question to answer just because tearing ACL on December 28th, let's say it is a 12-month injury. Not going to be back until into next season. Like, yeah, to this point of next season, let's say it's 12 months. He comes back like right after Christmas. That's tricky. How do you evaluate like how much he's worth coming off an ACL into his 30s? Like, does he then look at this as kind of like like I'm gonna go sign somewhere that in a mark and that maybe a more clear cut title contender for next season? What does he want in this thing is a very big unknown in all this. It's been an unknown to me kind of this whole process because I think his camp and him have kept that pretty close of us and kind of what he I think wants, beyond this season. I think this just ultimately complicates that decision. I think, if you had asked me 2 days ago, would I sign Ricky Rubio to some kind of fair extension? I think the answer is yes. I would have done 2 years, maybe 3 years, and keep him here as you're kind of building the baseline of this era of Cavs basketball and kind of going for something. That decision is just obviously, I think, much more complicated now. There's just no question that it is.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because maybe one of the veterans, like we laid out, like let's say it's just Jeff Teague. That's the name I'm gonna stick with. Let's say he has like a career renaissance, and then the Cavs like, okay, we'll sign Jeff Teague to a cheaper deal. My problem is, unless there's like a clear talent upgrade on the trade market for the Cavs, I don't think there's many options in free agency other than Ricky Rubio that could be like clear upgrades. Feel like Jalen Brunson is the biggest name, but I don't think Dallas is going to let him go whatsoever. So
and also the price point of like, okay, do you want to spend that much money on a backup to functionally a backup to Darius Garland? Like that's what you're paying for at this point.
You're signing Darius to an extension likely this offseason. It's probably going to be for a max contract. You might sign Colin Sexton to an extension this offseason. You have to look down Isaac Okoro's extension. next year. That's like when the conversations can start is next season. So there's a lot of pieces in play here that you have to kind of figure this out. And it's hard because Ricky's in his 30s. This is the second time he's torn this ACL. Like you said, he will likely not be back because a clean recovery window is 12 months. And let's say he had surgery today, it's going to be 12 months from today.
I just wanted to throw that up because that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, and we see how Jabari Parker's career is gone.
We see, and look, Michael Redd's career after that second, it's just different. This will change him. Like it's unfair to him, but this will change what Rubio is to some degree. Like he will still be cerebral. Absolutely. He will still be the intelligence will still be there.
His mind is sharp and capable, but his body is not. That's all it is. And I think this is going to be a popular sentiment going forward from a lot of fans where they think, okay, the Cavs will just use Rubio's expiring contract as a trade chip to make a clear upgrade at the point position. I don't think that's tenable or feasible either for the Cavs because unless they attach picks to Rubio's contract to incentivize a team to take on a player salary-wise that will not play for them this year, I don't think that makes sense in a vacuum to make like a marginal or a lateral upgrade just so you can maybe make a playoff push or something in March or April. I don't know. Maybe you sign Rubio for less than I guess I want to ask you, I think 2 or 3 years is fine. I was thinking maybe $6 million annually would have been fine. Like if that was just it was a flat 3-year $18 million
are you saying now or pre
before?
Okay.
Before.
See, I think I would have probably paid him more than 6, but I'm really bad at gauging value.
I think 6 to 6.5 is what I kind of had him pegged at in my head, million. And you get him on a 3-year contract. Maybe it's front loaded, it's a Kobe Altman special, and you enjoy it that way. But now, you could probably get him for way less than that. And if the Cavs are able to just kind of ride out this injury, maybe they get a young point guard who can kind of just provide for them now in the draft, or one of those second round picks via San Antonio or Houston, or like I said, maybe they make a move to make a clear talent upgrade, whether it's a Ben Simmons or something like that. But there are options available. I just don't think in the immediate future it's going to be a thing. You have to look towards this summer to say, okay, the Cavs can upgrade on their backup position, because once again, the Cavs no longer have a backup behind Darius Garland, which is really frustrating because Ricky Rubio made so much sense behind him.
Yeah, look, he's making 17.8 this year. I think even on an extension, I don't think he would have been worth that. I think the big question, I think now we look at this, if we're looking at what they're doing right here. Ricky Rubio is someone that I think if you want to bring him back, you don't trade him at the deadline, right? But I'm right, but Chris Manning, it's the obvious. We're at 11, but I think if you're looking at what they might do, I am not someone who thinks they should be all in on right now, this very season. I think that would be a little silly. But Rubio's contract at 17.8, and then Jetty's contract, and then the Sexton contract. You can trade players that are injured. There are obviously medical things that have to go through with this, and the Sexton one is, I think, much trickier than the Rubio one, just because of if you're trading for Sexton at his age, you'd think the team would want to sign him to an extension. I just wonder how this progresses, and how the Cavs don't leak a lot. They're very close to the vets. I will ultimately wonder how aggressive they will look to be to try and improve right now. And because I think the Rubio loss to some degree changes your ability to just be the quality team you've been. It will not unravel the whole season, because I think the core of the season has been Garland, Mobley, Allen, with Rubio's kind of the secondary orchestrator of all of this and a really good influence. But I wonder how aggressive they'll be, because there's now just clearly a big need for some kind of shot creation and some kind of creation in general. A guy who can dribble the basketball at a competent level is now just extremely needed on this basketball team. And you could probably find that in Jeff Teague on the cheap, and just get through the season and do that. But like, do you try to take a swing now to get the roster upgrade that you maybe want to make in the summer? If it comes available now, are you willing to go and chase that now? It's probably situational dependent. It's just one of those things that I don't think we know,
Yeah, but
I just think we know.
real quick,
Yeah.
Bobby Marks laid out the timeline for the Cavs. They have up until January 15th to apply for an $8.9 million disabled player exception. The DPE equals a player on a 1-year contract. You can sign or trade for them. The Cavs are currently $3.1 million below the luxury tax threshold, and they have 15 players on a contract. They must have an open roster spot to sign a player to a DPE. So they have to cut a player.
So we're looking
they could cut Pangos.
It'd be Pangos or Valentine, I would guess.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I don't know who you could trade for that's worth less than $8.9 million. I think you sign somebody at that point.
Yeah, I think we'd be signing someone. What just a bizarro like reality, like just what a crazy situation that they end up in here, just to like have to like figure this out. Like you couldn't, we talked about this in the first half of this. You could not have really picked the worst time to have to figure this out.
Yeah, because the barrel's dry. Like the Cavs can go search the G League for a point guard, but the majority of the competent playmakers that are in the G League right now are on 10-day exceptions with teams or be converted to two-way contracts, so teams can hold on to them longer.
And like we're already at the numbers I think already grown, but they've already had the most number of NBA players that have been signed to teams has already like been surpassed this season.
Yeah, it's been surpassed several times. It was
so
before Christmas, and the number just keeps getting eclipsed every day.
Yeah, so like we're just in like a very bizarre like roster reality.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. After the break,
just weird times, man.
Yeah. After the break, let's take some questions. So if you want to get a question in, we're gonna do 2 segments worth. Now's the time to fire in your best questions. We'll start picking them out after this. But Evan, are you ready to tell everyone about our friends at TrueBill?
I absolutely am. Did you guys know that online subscriptions and their trials they can renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Do not let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions today. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. Just because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there when you need to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill has saved over 2 million users and helped them save over $100 million combined. Do not fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA.
All right, let's get into some questions. Again, points for creativity. Let's just start with one.
Judah's in the chat.
We're gonna start with. We're just gonna go to the Ben Simmons bit
because the general question in general.
Yeah. So this is from Right Quick 24. I know Chris is gonna hate this idea, but if the Cavs want to compete in the playoffs at the right price, Simmons seems more like an option. I don't hate this. I'm sort of like, I think my take on Simmons, Evan, has sort of. I think take on.
Are you Zayvac pilled?
No, I'm never Zayvac pilled.
Okay, cool.
I'm also just not gonna go out like tweeting like mean things about Ben Simmons because I think that whole thing is just weird. But like, I think
pointing out that he doesn't take 3-pointers and he hesitated on a dunk shouldn't crystallize his entire NBA career. Again, he's a perennial all defensive player.
Yeah, I think I just look at like his specific fit with like what Mobley and Allen and Garland are, and I think it's a little dicier than I would have like. And the Cavs also just like further along in a way that I think like you could have clearly rebuilt him, and it was worth sort of the clunkiness of it all. And I just like have a hard time imagining how you play Simmons, Mobley, and Allen like all together and like make that work. Like it's just like too much dudes who need to like be in the dunker spot. Like Okoro's unplayable with those 3 guys on the floor. Like you might be needed. Like it's just I just don't see like a viable path to that being like super functional. I don't think it's like a bad talent play per se. It's not like it's just not probably like my favorite of the options that are possible.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I just think the Cavs should remain patient. I really do think about that Jaylen Brown hypothetical we tossed out the other day. Like, if the Cavs could somehow get involved and get Jaylen Brown, it involves sending like Sabonis to Boston or even Ben Simmons to Boston too, if the Celtics want to get real freaky with it. But I think the Cavs need to have a clear need on the wing. And like, yes, Ben Simmons makes sense. Like defensively, like the Cavs would be unstoppable. Well, they would be hard to stop defensively. I guess that makes more sense.
If they put Simmons, Mobley, and Allen on the floor together, just the amount of length and like defensive IQ would be outrageous. I don't know how they would score the basketball to some degree unless like you're just like creating like it would have to be really creative offensively to kind of make that work.
Well, Ben Simmons just puts on the jersey of his idol and fellow clutch client Tristan Thompson and realizes, you know what? I'm gonna take some threes.
Well, also like what like it would almost have to be like a situation where the Cavs were the third team and then like supplying picks and then like dumping their salary to bring Simmons into a third team. Like trading for Ben Simmons is just complicated.
It is, and I think it gets interesting. Like I don't know, man. Boston doesn't really need anyone in these trades either, because if they wait till the summer, Horford's contract isn't fully guaranteed next year either. So they could use that 26 plus million and use it as a trade chip to go get a player and attach some picks and maybe some younger assets to it. I just firmly remain in the mentality that the Cavs can maybe make like some small lateral moves. I think they'll use this exception to make one of those moves, of course, because I think the Cavs will apply for it for sure. But just keep it calm. I am still a fan of acquiring Ben Simmons. I don't think you clutch your pearls and say Larry Markkinen and like Rubio and Osmond are like immovable to get Ben Simmons. It's like
clutch your pearls.
That wasn't even intentional, but
that's good.
I am always an advocate of talent play, and Ben Simmons
puns.
Clear.
I love puns.
Play. And I just Chris has just got a sick. He's having a certified silly moment here right now.
There's sometimes stuff just makes you laugh, and that for whatever reason just really got me. That was good. That was good. It was good stuff.
Yeah, but I just don't think the Cavs are going to tank necessarily. I just think maybe they're really going to have to scrap for the play in at this point.
Well, yeah. So I feel like they're less likely a top 6 team now. Just
no,
flat
not
out.
at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
right now, after that loss to the New Orleans Pelicans, the playoffs started today. If I remember correctly, they would be in Miami playing the Heat in the first round as the 5 seed. And I
honestly, would be. I just Rubio is going to change this. Let's take one more question about a potential option. Nick asked from our YouTube comments, Chris Dunn as a potential option. I understand the defensive potential of Chris Dunn, and like I think we'd advocated him as like a signing last summer, but boy does he not.
Him,
like
Justin Rowan teased me incessantly. He's like, Evan just has a thing for players who just do not score on offense. I'm like, yeah, I like point guards that play defense. What can I say?
Yeah, so like he would fit that Rubio criteria in a way that maybe like Jeff Teague does not, but like he also is just like a really bad offensive player, and that is also bad.
Yeah, so I don't hate the Chris Dunn pick. If there's like no options out there, sure, why not? Maybe you start to scour the market a little bit too and look at teams that are trying to be bad or trying to shed some assets too, then maybe have a guard that isn't in the rotation. Like clearly Jose Calderon doesn't fit into this exception because, oh my God, I still can't believe he's making 19. Sorry, not Jose Calderon, Goran Dragic. I was thinking of Toronto point guards that are old, but I don't know what the Cavs do. I have to really like think this over and look it over. Right now, like Teague on the 10-day makes a lot of sense, and then you just kind of reevaluate and move forward from there.
Yeah,
because again, the Cavs aren't a team that like overreacts to things and like says, "Oh my God, Ricky Rubio's done for the season. We got to go get a new backup point guard immediately." Do not be surprised if you see Pangos like RJ Nembhard, Isaac Okoro, and Denzel Valentine taking spots at the point tomorrow against Washington.
Yeah. All right. After the break, let's take some more questions. If you can ask us some questions that are not about Ben Simmons, kudos, and please do that because I don't really know how much I can talk about Ben Simmons. But first, there's a name that we could. We'll let someone ask in the chat. That'll be interesting. All right, after the break, we'll take another question, another name that someone put in the chat that I just now thinking about and can't stop thinking about. But got to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is the official betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And look, they're covering you this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues as March to the college bowl season and the pro football playoffs. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. All you got to do is use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus. From basketball to football to NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on your favorite sports, so don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing new amazing offers available. And remember, that's BetOnline. That is where the game starts. All right, Evan, someone in the chat, Johnny Taylor, said Dennis Schroeder, ? Don't think he quite fits the JaVale exception.
Look it up.
But like clearly does not have like a future in Boston just based on like the money he's gonna want and stuff.
Well, he had a future at the Lakers, but he turned that down.
I don't like hate that, to be honest with you. I don't know if like the vibe is exactly what you want, but because in terms of like him,
$5.89 million, so he even fits under the disabled exception too. So like the Cavs wanted to trade for Schroeder, they could.
Yeah.
The question is, does Boston want to trade Dennis Schroeder for nothing?
Yeah. The other one that I want to say is Yorgos, and some other people have talked about Kevin Pangos, and just said give Pangos a chance. I also just think like you should probably like the early returns have obviously been very bad, but
yeah,
like
no, we agree on that.
Like I just probably just like maybe see if you could just try. I guess like you might just need to try. You know, like I don't like. I mean, I don't know based on like what we saw Jeff Teague as being in the NBA last year, if like Kevin Pangos is like demonstrably worse than like Jeff Teague at this point. Like, do we know that for sure? Teague's probably bigger and he's more proven in the league, but like he also just looked kind of old last year.
Yeah, he did look old, but also I don't know. I think there might be something there too. I just do. Like, yeah, he signed with Boston and then he was traded to Orlando for Fournier and was waived. Then he signed with the Bucks soon after that, and then was a part of the championship Bucks squad. Like, so to be clear, he averaged 6 points and about 3 rebounds for Milwaukee in the regular season, and then did not play at all in the postseason. If he did, like, it was 7 minutes of games. It's not a huge deal. Oh wow, I didn't see that one until
I was just waiting because good Lord, no.
You know what, man? For the culture, why not? A young Evan would fuck with it.
You're gonna just sell. You're gonna just. You just gonna. We just sell. We just here to sell some jerseys.
Yeah, sell some jerseys. But people can't read tweets either because a sports book contacted me and said that Kyrie Irving is the betting favorite according to their odds to be traded to the Cavs. I'm like, you know what? Sure, fine, I'll share that. And people were like, "Oh my god, Kyrie Irving's gonna be a Cav." No, he's not. Kyrie Irving's just a part-time player. He gets paid full-time money, but it's tough, man. Like, 'cause I think Schroeder does make a lot of sense too if they want to make a trade. Maybe TJ McConnell too. I know that's a player the Cavs try to pursue in free agency.
He's also out,
but he's hurt
right now. Yeah,
he's out with an injury. But like, if this gets really dicey, and the Cavs are really waiting up until the trade deadline to make things work, maybe that's an option as well. I don't know. Maybe is there a disgruntled like George Hill type player in Sacramento that wants to come hang out?
I would have said like Kemba if the Knicks didn't have like Derrick Rose, just because the Kemba thing would have been kind of wild.
Yeah, Kemba.
But he also has. I don't want to pay him after this year. Like I don't want to spend future money if I'm finding a Rubio replacement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like you don't need to jeoprize your future just to try and make a push for the 6th seed. Is what I'm trying to say. Like remain.
We're in agreement on that. I guess like the bigger question is like, are you opposed to like, would you stack some of these salaries, I guess, like in terms of Sexton and Osman is the starting point and perhaps Rubio? Like, would you be willing to stack those contracts and make a big swing now? Like, depending on who the player is, if you could turn those 3 salaries into picks into something, like in theory, like how aggressive would you be?
I mean, I'd always be aggressive if I was a general manager in the league. I'd be that annoying guy who says D's nuts jokes and then eventually you agree to a trade with me because somehow life finds a way. But it just depends if there's a clear talent upgrade because yes, Jetty's season can be credited a lot to Ricky's production and playing alongside him, but do you really want to? I mean, you're already missing two pieces in your rotation in Sexton and Rubio there, but do you want to remove another piece in that rotation in Osman for one player? I don't know if that's necessarily worth it because, like you said too, you are looking at this as you're trading a young asset in Colin Sexton as well, possibly picks too. You're expected to extend this player or keep them around for at least a year or two, and then maybe you
Yeah,
maximize your returns on them.
in theory in theory they wanted to.
Yeah, in theory, you want to do that. Like, you don't, that's such bad asset management if you give up pieces just to make a marginal move to address your backup point guard position. And then you don't recoup that acquisition and you just let them walk in free agency, or you just kind of just fumble the bag on this one. I just don't see Rubio's contract as a trade chip. I mean, Sexton, maybe if a team really believes like he's going to be okay with his meniscal tear and like bounce back from this just because he's an athletic freak, but and then Osman as well. Like, I get the upside there too. Like, maybe you can entice a team to agree to a trade, but like it's still tough for me because you have to really sell a team on the fact that, okay, you're trading a player worth X amount of dollars, and if those salaries combined that's a substantial player. So like you're trading a substantial player at that point for two guys who aren't going to play this year and Jetty Osman. What else are you going to give me for my troubles? You're going to have to attach draft picks to that. And that's where I start to get a little, like, it gives me pause.
I would like. I think like Levert, like a Levert move could still make some sense in theory if you could get there.
Yeah.
I just like wonder. Like, I think the Sexton part of this just becomes a more like the Rubio thing. I think is very clearly like he'll probably be in the NBA roster next year because he's Ricky freaking Rubio, and like someone will like be like someone like a contender or Cleveland. Will, or, let's say it's the Cavs, or like let's say it's like Golden State or the Lakers or whomever.
Ricky Rubio on the Warriors would slap so hard. Just like end of rotation vibes guy, Ricky Rubio would be so fun.
But like he will be someone that like just because of who he is, I think like people around the league will be willing to wait for him to come back and like add him in as like I can see the Cavs doing that. Like, you know, you've built a bunch of, if your relationship with him is good and you're willing to, and the money's right and whatever, you could like sign him and like know he's going to come back in December of next year, maybe into January if you want to be extra cautious considering his age, and this is the second time he's torn this ACL, and you see if you can make it work from there, and then you got to just see what he's like athletically at that point. But Sexton is just like trickier because if you're trading him, like Rubio, you could I could see a world where like you're just using him as salary, like in purely like business inhumane standpoint, and I don't like doing that, but it's just the reality. You could trade him as just like a salary matching if you wanted to, and attach picks, and like he could theoretically like get traded somewhere and like never report. I think if the Sexton part of this, and clearly Osman because he's signed for a couple of years after this, it's like those guys would have to go somewhere where the team like wants them. You know what I mean? Like, if like Indiana was like interested in Sexton, they would have to take him in and like be comfortable with his medicals and then probably start negotiating an extension of some kind. Like, that's presumably why you would think you'd make that move from now, because you want to keep the guy that's now heading into restricted free agency. Rubio is like theoretically like a guy that if his camp is like, hey, like, look, you've been really good to us, Cleveland, but like I want to go play in a different spot, and I'm gonna just go to free agency. Like, I'm not guaranteeing I'm willing to come back. Or like whatever, you could then trade him, and you could theoretically bring him back next summer anyway. But like you could use that chip a little differently than the Sexton or Osman ones might. And I just wonder if that ever becomes something that we see explored here. I don't know.
I got a trade proposal for you.
Oh boy,
it's from Josh Eberly. The Cavs acquire Tomas Satoransky and Brandon Ingram. And the Pelicans acquire Kevin Love, Colin Sexton, Isaac Okoro, this year's first, the 2024 first, the 2026 first, and a lottery protected 2028 first.
That's just so complicated that I just don't even know how to entertain that.
So essentially, the Cavs are giving up their first round pick for their next 4 tradable first round picks.
Yeah, I'm not doing that
for Sexton and Love.
Yeah,
for
I'm
Satoransky and Brandon Ingram, who
that's too many picks. That is too many picks. 4 first round picks.
4 first round picks.
Yeah, not doing that. That's Ingram is not a 4 first round pick guy.
Satoransky, if he wasn't making $10 million a year, that'd be a player that'd be like, yeah, why not?
He fit,
Why
and
not?
because he's like the bigger kind of off-ball guard. Yeah, dude.
Yep.
There are only a couple players in this league that are 4 first-round pick players, and if I'm still like trying to build this out sustainably, I'm Cleveland, who's not a free agency market. I'm not cashing in 4 first-round picks. Like Brandon Ingram is good. I would trade for Brandon Ingram if I could, but I don't know if 4 first-round picks is it for me. I also just like hate fake trades. Can I say
I
this?
know
They
you
stress
do.
me out because I just have no they're so often just so removed from like practicality in a lot of ways that they're just like designed for like engagement, and that just like never just like stuff for the sheer like doing it because it is theoretically like going to get engagement for you is just like doesn't quite like makes me uncomfortable as I'm like flapping my arms around like I'm a freaking chicken. Like anyway. Okay, here's I want to end on this because I think this is an insanely hot take. I know this is probably unpopular, but I'd rather get Miles Turner than LeVert. Get another big who is great on defense and can spread the floor. I know it sounds crazy, but just my opinion. Are you trading Jared Allen? Like you're not doing Turner, Mobley, and Allen is Galaxy brain roster construction.
Mobley's a 3 dog. Just let's stretch it to its limit. Play point forward Evan Mobley, Miles Turner at the 4, Jared Allen at the 5, Dean Wade at or Kevin Love at the 2, Dean Wade at the 1 or whatever. I don't freaking know. Why not?
Miles Turner
My
should be on
brain
like a good
hurts. Like
team, but
this news sucks. I don't think it's
yeah.
a death knell for the Cavs season, but it's definitely going to make things harder.
So let's just TLDR this conversation at the end. Here's a coda. Number 1, we both agree that this lessens the Cavs. I think we both would say that this lessens the Cavs' chances of being like a locked-in top 6, not a play-in team.
Yeah, that's
okay.
100% right.
Secondly, especially while Darius Garland is out, we have no idea how this team is going to function offensively.
Yep. They clearly were struggling without Darius on the floor last night against the Pelicans. Like there's a clear drop off offensively without Darius on the floor. Without Darius and Ricky on the floor, that was a pained groan.
Put the ball in Evan's hands is not you. Because no offense to you, but that would probably not go well.
I got the mind of a player. I'm like Ricky Rubio. I got the mind, but I do not have the physical ability.
You might be like Deli getting. Yeah, I also have bad knees. Have you torn your ACL twice?
No, just once.
Okay. And then thirdly, I think we would both agree that it's sort of hard to gauge what this sort of means for the Cavs as far as trade chips go because we just don't know. Like, I think this is still like a little fresh to kind of see if they're gonna like go all in on this year. But I think if we were saying it was up to us, we would say they probably shouldn't just go all in on right now and being a 6 seed right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I wouldn't overreact, man. Just see what you have.
Yeah, but this does suck. Ricky Rubio is awesome. He's been really fun to watch. He was having a phenomenal game, was on the verge of a triple-double before he got hurt. And, I hope for him that this isn't like the last hurrah of Rubio. I hope you get to see him come back and play really well. That would make me pretty happy, whether it's Cleveland or elsewhere. For him, the human being, I hope he gets a chance to come back, and we will kind of see where this goes. But that is going to be it for this episode of Locked On Cavs. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. We'll be back with one more episode this week, our last episode of 2021. This has been a great year for Locked On Cavs. It's been, I think, our most listened to year ever. We launched our YouTube channel this year. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. So if you're maybe tuning us live for the first time, listening to us live for the first time, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live in the future. We're trying to do some of these to be engaged with you, take your questions. Really appreciate everyone who listens every day. We want to thank you for making us, if you are your first listen, we want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Please go subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And again, hit subscribe on YouTube. We thank you for tuning in. Evan, any parting thoughts?
No, just thanks for making us your first listen, first watch, as always. We really appreciate it. Thanks to our wonderful sponsors. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. If we could hit 1,000 before the end of the year, which is Friday, hard to believe.
Time isn't real. Time is like a Christopher
real.
Nolan movie.
Time is a social construct. Reply to Chris and I in our mentions after the show goes up tomorrow when you're listening. What would be your totem in Inception? That is my question of the day.
Evan, what's your favorite Christopher Nolan movie?
God.
Mine's Dunkirk.
Dunkirk's really cool.
Dunkirk's
It's
great.
really tense.
That movie is vastly underrated. Vastly
Dunkirk's
underrated.
really good. The Dark Knight Rises is a great comedy. So if you laugh at that movie the whole time, it's so funny.
You're a sick man. You're a sick man,
I am.
Evan.
I'm
You're
sick. I'm not well. I'm gonna go make a sandwich and chill out.
All right.
Be well, everyone.
Everyone be well again. Ricky Rubio out for the torn ACL. We just talked about it for an hour. I hope everyone enjoyed. We'll be back to react to Cavs COVID ball Thursday night after they play Thursday night and then play Atlanta on Friday. Be well. Have a great rest of your evening.